shoot. Fires from the top of the key and takes it home. The Liberty take a 2-point lead.
Welcome to Liberty FM, the podcast dedicated to all things New York Liberty. I'm Francois, and I'm joined by my co-host and wife, Felicia. This is episode 11, recapping 3 home games and 1 away game in LA for what was a busy week for the Liberty. And it was business almost as usual for the Liberty, and you'll understand shortly why. Let's start with the first game that happened last Tuesday against the Seattle Storm, which was the 4th time that we faced our opponent. And Felicia, we should say that it might have played a part, the fact that we played them so many times already, because it seems like the Seattle Storm was starting to figure us out a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think this game was something I expected to be a battle. Seattle is still a great team. They have Jewell Loyd, and they don't call her the Gold Mamba for nothing. And so I think the Seattle probably caught the Liberty off guard here by being so aggressive in the first half. Jewell Loyd went off. And
you think she went up? Let me tell you, she had 22 points in the first half. I think she was 5 for 7 from the free point line. So to say that she had a good start is an understatement. But continue, Felicia.
Yeah, I think it's just, you only have so many teams in this league, and all these teams, I keep saying it, just like what Stewie has said, all these teams are great teams, despite what the standings may say, and Seattle being where they are in the standings, they still have some really great players. As I said, Jewell Loyd, Ezi Magbagor, they were doing great things in the first half, definitely to keep a strong lead on the Liberty. The Liberty started missing their first few shots, and once you start rushing and trying to catch up, you play this game of catch up, they're going to pick apart your whole game plan, and that's basically what they started to do in the first half. And so they really had to come together and figure it out. They started to figure it out a little bit in the second half, and I'm grateful we got the win, but even in the second half, it started looking real chippy.
I'm sure by now people have watched the game, but let's pretend that some people don't know what happened, and let's try to keep the suspense a little bit. You revealed too much already, Felicia, because
they've seen it.
Yeah, probably. But my feeling definitely in the first half was that we might be here for a long and tough night, because the way, as we mentioned, the way Jewell Loyd started this game, as a 3-point shot, we talk about Sabrina, but Jewell Loyd as well are so smooth. But yeah, on top of that, the Liberty, the field goal percentage was not that great. Like usually with Sabrina, for example, like very early on, she has a couple of threes. She's in rhythm. She's there for to have a good night. But I do remember like that game, like not a lot of things were going in for her and for other players. The only good thing was that at least they were rebounding, which was definitely something that we kind of struggled in the previous game against Seattle, that they almost got the win. And so at least that was the only good thing. But if you look at the stats at halftime, the Liberty were trailing by 10, 31.8% field goal percentage overall, almost 22% from the free-throw line, considering that the Liberty are the number 1 team beyond the arc. That was not very optimistic first half. And what can we say about the third? It was even worse. I do remember that between the second and third quarter, the Liberty didn't score any field goal for 7 minutes.
Yeah, it was that part of it, I would say, was painful to watch. And I'm sure if they watched it back, it was probably painful for them too, because it's like 7 minutes between the second and the third quarter. No basket. I mean, no ball was going in. And that was just hard to see, because that just kept Seattle in rhythm to make their shots, and the lead clearly grew to 18?
Yeah, so at that point, I think I'm sure that Sandy probably took a timeout at that moment, but I was looking at the score, it's like, we're down by 18, and it's like, what did just happen? Like, how are we gonna like figure this out? Like you feel like they can figure it out because they have talent, but the way the Liberty had played throughout 2 quarters and a half was really worrying. And so for me, I think what was key, and prior to that game, Jonquel Jones was voted Eastern Conference Player of the Week for 2 amazing performances against the Washington Mystics and the Indiana Fever. And what I really liked, what the Liberty did after that 18-point lead by the Storm, is that instead of insisting shooting freeze after freeze, they just gave the ball on the inside to Jonquel Jones, and it definitely seems like Jonquel Jones is back.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think, last week and probably the week before, you started to see this emergence of Jonquel Jones, and I think she just seems herself. She seems happy on the court. They're feeding her more, which I think we were talking about all season. Like, you gotta feed Jonquel more. That is your threat on the inside. If you're not gonna do that, teams just run away with getting shots in the paint, and you need her. You need her there. You need that presence to get those shots in the paint. And she is just really coming through. And I think in the second half for the Liberty, by going to JJ, they really turned things around. I mean, you also had Stewie and Betnijah, who are also helping the team. They were the top 2 scorers for this game. And they definitely kept us afloat, even into the second half.
And so once the Liberty started to gain a bit more confidence, Jonquel Jones, I think, scored about 6 points at that moment. The momentum literally shifted. And what I really liked about Sabrina Ionescu, like, she could have easily given up. Like, none of her shots are really getting in. But she was doing other things, and so many other things. Like, I've never seen her fighting for so many rebounds. Mm-hmm. She was going for every single rebound, whether defensive or offensive. I know there was even like a point where she like missed a 3-point shot. She got her own rebound and then had a no-look pass for Stewie. That was amazing. Like, she was also facilitating, having those different passes for JJ, Betnijah, like. She made herself useful in the way that the team really needed at the time, and I really like that. Sometimes, obviously you always hear like the saying "shooters shoot," but sometimes you gotta figure out that this is not your night and you need to provide in a different way. So she definitely did that.
Yeah, she definitely did. I think the thing about Sabrina is that she's gonna keep shooting. Even for that night, 2 of 14 field goals, 2 of 9. From the 3-point line. It's a tough night. You only scored 12 points, but she had the second highest number of rebounds that to JJ. She had 12, and she also had 12 assists. So her own triple-double was 12, 12, and 12.
Yeah.
And, she did the little things. She knew, okay, my shooting is off right now. I'm going to do other things to help my team win. And she did whatever she could on that court, and that definitely, you can see that with the assists, with the rebounding. She was aggressive in ways that, I think other players, you're right, if they're having a bad shooting night, they may not think to, let me try to do other stuff while my shooting's off. My teammates can pick me up. Like, Betnijah contributed, obviously Stewie, JJ, Marine, everyone tried to contribute as much as they can while she had an off shooting night. And granted, they were down as much as 18 points, but they definitely made a great comeback to win this game. And you gotta also, give points to Sabrina for just doing the little things that helped her team win.
Yeah, and so, right after the 18-point lead by the Storms, the Liberty had a 15-2 run, and the momentum literally shifted. And it was funny because, like, before the game, they had given us those towels, those seafoam towels that was when go the extra miles. And I don't know, but it just gave an extra energy to the crowd, like, because they were throwing those towels any chance they got. And especially when the momentum shifted and the Liberty got the crowd going with this comeback, like, it was probably like the loudest we've heard the Barclays this season. And I'm not even like, it wasn't even the biggest attendance because obviously it was on the Tuesday evening, but it was definitely the loudest. And I think Stewie recognized that after the game. She said that, sometimes we kind of take it for granted being at home, but like, hearing the crowd pushing us in those moments, like that definitely gives them the extra energy. And then even to a point where I think it was about 1 or 2 minutes left, and Jonquel Jones had a bank shot that really kind of gave us like, not the momentum, but pretty much like a good lead at a crucial moment. And from that moment on, I think like I knew that it was over and we were gonna get the win. Seattle tried to foul, but they fouled the wrong people, Stewie and Sabrina, and thanks to those free throws at the end, it got her the triple-double that you mentioned, 12, 12, 12. Her 4th triple-double in her career. She's now the second player with the most triple-double in the WNBA behind Alyssa Thomas, who's, collecting triple-doubles every week right now. So it's going to be hard to catch her up. But definitely, historic performance once again. And what a comeback by the New York Liberty against a Seattle team that was definitely much tougher than the standings show. So overall, we faced them 4 times now, and we got 4 wins. I think they say it was the first time since 2014 that the Liberty won a series against the Storm. So great way to start the week, even though we wish it was a little smoother.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for them to have this win versus the Storm, I mean, back then you have Sue Bird and you also had Stewie on that side. So, it was a tougher team, a much tougher team back then. So, no, I'm glad they got the win. I'm glad they won this series against the Storm. And there's just things that, we know the Liberty, they have to work on. They know what they need to work on, and they just got to keep pushing through each game if they're trying to make the playoffs, if they're really trying to make a run at this. There's starting games, coming out strong, turnovers. I don't know how many times we can talk about that, but I'm sure we'll talk about it more as with the other games that we're going to talk about. But there's still some things that, they really got to tighten up, that I personally worry about for them going further into the season.
All right, so let's move on now to Thursday's game against the Atlanta Dream. And Shui said that this game against the Atlanta Dream was, how should I say that? Expected, put on people's calendar for quite some time because we know that, and just to put things into context, so after, I think it was end of June that the New York Liberty beat the Atlanta Dream by quite a while, 30 points. We're not going to remind that for Dream fans. But they won by 30 in Atlanta. And Rhyne Howard, the star of the Atlanta Dream, tweeted shortly after July 27th, meaning that she was, putting that in her calendar the next time that she was going to face the Liberty. And I think it was probably due to the fact that at some point, one of the players from Atlanta got injured or received an elbow, by accident by Dawson. So she was like, on the floor for quite some time, got taken out the court. And then, Sabrina shot the free throws, I think. I can't remember what. No, Tanisha Wright, the coach of Atlanta, got attacked because she thought that it should have been a flagrant.
Right.
And so as a result, Sabrina shot the free throw. People were not happy. She made the free throw. And then pretty much shushed the crowd or, asked them to wave and asking them to calm down. And that's when, the crowd started booing, which is obviously, I felt like maybe Sabrina should have just, made the free throw and move on. But I think that kind of created a little bit of animosity that maybe was already there prior to that. But yeah, basically, Rhyne Howard put that in a calendar, and I think a lot of people are just waiting for the last matchup between the two teams.
I definitely feel like there's, I don't know if it's really animosity, but
that was probably too big of a word, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's that serious, but there is something. I do feel like when we watch Atlanta and New York play, there is a certain chippiness. There's just a level of aggressiveness between both teams that I don't really see with other teams, that they definitely go at each other. I would say more so than other teams. So, I don't know where that stems from. I feel like I started to see a little bit of it last year, and I saw it again this year. And I don't know if that's to one individual player or the team. We got a bunch of new players, so I don't think it's them. So the only person I could point at would be somebody got beef with Sabrina somewhere. But, and I think, to circle it on your calendar, and I'm sure the Liberty was like, all right, bet, we circle it too.
And I think, they definitely put that in their calendar, because the way the Liberty started the first quarter was pretty amazing. They started on an 18-2 run with JJ pretty much continuing on the comeback tour. Because she was on the roll. The previous game, she had another double-double, I think with 11 points and 17 rebounds. But this time around, she was in an offensive presence that was much needed. And I felt like it was smart, because Atlanta obviously is a great, talented team, but they don't really have any centers. I mean, Cheyenne Parker obviously is doing great for them, but I would consider her more as a power forward. And so Jonquel Jones definitely has the height advantage, and considering the fact that she's doing better now physically, and also feel more confident about her role on the team, she was dominating the Dream, and I think that was the right thing to do to start the game.
Yeah, again, you got to give JJ her flowers. Seeing her perform at the high level, it's just what we needed to see from her in these games. And I'm just grateful and thankful that they're feeding her and she's being more aggressive and those shots are going down, because that just builds your confidence too. With each game, you see the ball go through the hoop, it builds and it continues to build, and it really does continue to build for JJ. I'm just glad to see that she's just handling everything so strongly for the Liberty, and that they're feeding her the ball more and more. I'm glad to see that they kept Rhyne Howard pretty much out of the game. Really.
So it really felt like that was the number one mission for this game, was to stop Rhyne Howard. I cannot help but thinking of Becky Hammond of the Las Vegas Aces. I saw a clip the other day when they were playing against the Chicago Sky in Chicago, and she was like, ABC, anything but Copper, Kalia Copper of the Chicago Sky, that kept on scoring after scoring, and she was really mad with her team for not stopping her, because that was pretty much the go-to plan to stop the Sky. And I feel like obviously the Dream have many weapons, but their superstar is Rhyne Howard, and it definitely felt like the Liberty had a plan that worked well. Now, you could argue that it was partially due to the Liberty's defense and partially due to Rhyne Howard having an off night, and that happens to shooters. But I definitely feel like the Liberty made her life way more difficult than previous games, because a lot of her shots were 4 shots, and she didn't have a lot of space to have a usual game.
Yeah, I just felt like they were more aggressive. The way they came out just in attack mode is just, it's just what I want to see from the Liberty. I don't feel like they start every game this way, but you can definitely tell they wanted this win. You could tell the way they came out. And it's not to say that they don't want it for every game, but just the aggressiveness they had from the start of this game, I definitely want to see that for future games too, because the way they played to shut her down, especially in that first half, and she had an off night too, because she definitely had looks to shoot the ball. It's just the shots weren't going down, but they definitely had a great defensive stop on her many times. And so, I think overall, once you can keep the star player out, it's pushing everyone else to step up. And you had some people, Alicia Gray, Erin McDonald. They definitely stepped up for the Dream, but they needed Rhyne Howard in this too. And so I'm just glad the Liberty came out with just so much aggressiveness and really got this win.
Yeah, and there was one player that I'm sure also had put this game on the calendar was Breanna Stewart, because I know it was a while ago that lost at home against the Atlanta Dream, but I do remember vividly that this was probably the worst game of the season for Breanna Stewart, especially shooting wise. And obviously when you have a bad shooting night for someone like Stewie, and for a team that relies so much on her, it was meant to be a tough night for the New York Liberty. But this game, and especially the second quarter, my God, Breanna Stewart. It's like, so when we were at the game, I was like, taking, different videos so that I can do nice little reels and stuff like that. And so when I was putting all those videos together, all those clips, like, it was all about Breanna Stewart. And I'm like, for those of you that hate on women's basketball and always come up with, really silly arguments as to why they don't want to watch it, please watch Breanna Stewart and tell me if, you see any difference in terms of shooting technique and abilities between Kevin Durant and Breanna Stewart, for example. Her shot is amazing. She can do fadeaway jump shots, turn around, pump fake, like from freeze, from mid-range, and the most difficult positions. She does everything, and it looks so easy, but obviously it's not. And it was just sinking in to me. Like, I didn't really want to take this moment for granted, because I don't think people realize how good she is. I mean, you look at, MVP talents, it's pretty much A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart. They are the top two players in this league. They are the two superstars of this league. And so, for us as fans to be able to witness that, it's amazing. And Atlanta could not stop her at all. She had 18 points in the second quarter, 4 assists. She wasn't like taking all the shots. She was also, giving dimes to her teammates. She was being aggressive. Like, I can't remember the number of times she went at the free throw line because she kept attacking the basket, being, aggressive. And for a defense, that must be so hard to try to contain a player like that for 40 minutes. That is a tough job, isn't it?
Yeah, Breanna, she's just a consummate basketball player, and you gotta respect her game. She is a phenomenal player. Hence why her and A'ja Wilson were the leaders in the All-Star in the All-Star game and in the tally, in the votes. And so, just watching some of her fadeaway jump shots, it's just a thing of beauty to see. And even when we would watch NBA games, for instance, like you said, for people that criticize the WNBA or say just silly and really stupid things, like, you gotta watch these women.
Yeah,
like,
please
you
watch.
really gotta
please
watch these
the
players.
games.
You gotta watch the games, because they are just as good, if not better, than a number of NBA players out there. So
well, you're gonna be in trouble, Fee.
No, it's true though. Like, when you see them play, it's like, there's not much difference. But anyway, aside from that, Stewie handled her business in the first half. She had 25 points in the first half alone, 33 overall for the game. But she meant business, and she put her foot down, especially in that second quarter. And I think, she was such a phenomenal addition to the Liberty. It's what the Liberty needed. It's great to have Sabrina, but you needed that leader. You needed someone who could do it all on the court. And really, Stewie can do it all on the court, just like you said. And so, great half for her. And, the Atlanta Dream didn't really have a response to that.
Yeah, but as expected, because Atlanta is a team that, always battles and try to come back. And you mentioned Ari McDonald and Alicia Gray, who are tremendous guards and, have a lot of speed and attack the basket, can shoot threes. Ari McDonald seemed to have added that to our arsenal as well. But they helped the Dream to make a little comeback in the third quarter. But there are two players that really stood out for me in the second half, because Stewie didn't score as much in the second half, but Jonquel Jones, mentioning her again, and then Queen Bee, Betnijah Laney. So, JJ continued dominance. She not only scored on the inside, but also 3-pointers. She fought for some loose balls. Like, I remember there was one moment where she literally, like run after the ball and then kick it between the legs to save the ball. It was amazing, especially for someone that tall, like to do something like that. So it was great to see a joy and a passion and a willingness to, do anything she could for the team. But Betnijah Laney in the fourth quarter was what really settled the score for good in this game. She was fairly quiet for her standards in that game so far in the first 3 quarters, and then she blew up in that fourth quarter, showing pretty much all the moves that she has shown us this season: corner freeze, aggressive layups, the sort of like turnaround that she does, or when she attacks the paint, and it's really hard to stop her. Like we've mentioned that many times before, but that's such an underrated player. I wish she was at the All-Star game, but so crucial to that team. And when she plays like that, and you have JJ and Stewie that provided tremendous numbers for the team, I couldn't see how the Dream were gonna beat us, and hopefully it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, Betnijah came through in the fourth quarter. The game, this is a game of runs. And so, obviously, Atlanta's not just going to lie down and take a beating. All these teams are going to fight, and they're going to fight back. They're going to make adjustments at the half, and they're going to come back. And then that's what Atlanta did. They definitely tried to come back, and they won the third quarter, but they were still down. And I think the Liberty definitely wanted to keep pressure. And I think that was the one thing sometimes for the Liberty, when they take leads, they tend to take their foot off the gas almost. Yeah. It seems like they relax, and then teams come back, and then they have to bring people back. If you have like a 20-point lead, maybe we could give Stewie a break, but then teams come back, you got to bring Stewie back in. And so, for them, Betnijah going off in the fourth quarter was definitely a great highlight, because you could tell the Liberty was like, we're not giving this up. No matter how hard you fight, we're not giving up this win by no means. And so, it was an overall great win. Again, I questioned the chippiness between both teams.
What did you notice at the end of the game?
Well, at the end of the game, you see Sabrina, waving bye to the Atlanta Dream. And that's not typical behavior of her. You don't usually see that from Sabrina in games all the time, unless there's a team that really, I feel like, got under her skin, or I don't know if, trash talking on the court. It happens. People trash talk, people say all kind of things. So I don't know all that happened on the court, but, to see her do that, I was surprised, because it was just like, all right, this game really meant something to the Liberty, and, they got the win. So I'm a happy girl.
Yeah, and so that was the last time until maybe the playoff, because I think Rhyne Howard, kind of laugh, at the fact that, it was such a big deal, her tweet, and was asking, I'll be ready for the next time. Obviously, she didn't have the performance that she wanted to, but there's no next time unless we face in the playoff, and obviously that would be a different story. But we are done with the Atlanta Dream for now, for the regular season. And we had the win. What was great was that Brandello, because they had 3 home games this week, and probably 5 games in 8 or 9 days. Mm-hmm. So she needed to use her bench way more than she has been used prior to that game. And she was asked about Jocelyn Willoughby after the game, and I think Willoughby played the whole fourth quarter.
She played the whole fourth quarter.
And obviously, Jocelyn Willoughby, you're not necessarily going to see it on the stat sheets, the importance that she has, but defense, and sometimes, corner freeze when the team needed to, are very important as well. Especially with Ionescu out, Dawson out, Epiphany Prince that doesn't get a lot of playing time. That's a very short rotation, so I'm glad that Brandello gave props to Willoughby, and hopefully seeing more of her and more of the bench for what is a tricky schedule for the month of August. But let's move on now to the third game, the game against the Minnesota Lynx. And this game was kind of oddly placed because if you remember, this game was meant to be happening, I think, June 8th or something like that. But due to the fires in Canada that sort of, were brought to New York, and it was a little bit unsafe for a lot of outdoor and indoor sports to be played on that day, it was rescheduled for July 28th. And some people, because I know it's frustrating as New York Liberty fans, and the best way is just not respond, but there seems to be a lot of haters for the New York Liberty. I don't know why. Maybe it's because this year we have a quote-unquote super team, even though nobody was complaining when we were bottom of the league a couple of years ago, and now we made our own way, and I guess that creates some jealousy or whatever. I don't know. But a lot of people started joking that, well, the Liberty, put in their calendar the July 27th, but maybe they forgot to put July 28th on their calendar because that was a tough game. And in a way, you kind of expected that it was going to be a little harder because, there's not a lot of back-to-backs in the WNBA.
Yeah, back-to-back games are hard. I really wanted the Liberty to win this one. The way they started
really well.
I felt confident that they could win, but you could see how tired they got, and they came fast and with a fury. You saw how tired they became, and you just saw that they were on the back foot with Minnesota. Minnesota, they were the aggressive ones. They were keeping pace. Liberty could not catch up, no matter how hard they try. And again, it's a game of runs, and the Liberty definitely had some runs here and there, but this was Minnesota's game, unfortunately, and it wasn't a game for the Liberty. And yeah, they looked tired. They looked like they were playing a back-to-back.
Yeah, and I remember before the game, it seems like there was a little less people than usual, even though the stadium kind of filled in, throughout the game. They give us those towels again, hoping to recreate that energy from the Tuesday games against Seattle. And in some part it did, especially in the fourth quarter that I will mention later on. But I saw, what could be considered as, MVP contender, definitely a top 5 player, Napheesa Collier, who's been having an amazing season. But we saw her with, an ankle injury, and that she was going to be out for the game and for, the next 7 to 10 days. And I don't know why. I was like, your first instinct is like, oh, well, that's going to be a much easier game because, the superstar of the team is not there. But then I was like, you know what? Every time you think, oh, that's going to be an easier game,
nope.
It turns out that it's much more complicated. And you got to give props to the Minnesota Lynx. They started the season 0-6. And as of today, we're recording this episode on Monday. They are now at 50% wins. So a tremendous turnaround for the Lynx. And what really impressed me is the defense. They really made it really, really hard for the Liberty, right? You could argue that the Liberty had an off night, they were tired, but the Minnesota Lynx were making their life really difficult.
Yeah, they were trapping, and which caused the Liberty to make, I guess, just mental miscues and just miscommunication all across the floor. I think when you look at Minnesota, their defense was top notch for sure, and they were giving the Liberty a tough time on the court, and whatever they could do to disrupt, and especially because the Liberty did look tired. I think in the first quarter they came out pretty strong. The Liberty did, and you felt like, okay, they still got energy. You felt like, but it seemed like that was the last gas that they had almost, because after that, it just slowed. You could tell they were just like a step behind, and Minnesota took advantage every time, and just, again, silly turnovers. Some of it was not all, Minnesota's doing either. I just think, again, the Liberty, that's something they have to tighten up with, taking care of the ball on both ends. And that again, I feel like is definitely their Achilles heel, and with turnovers. And I just feel like a number of them can be unforced. And if they just tighten that up, they would definitely have a better game. But this one was all about Minnesota. And even with Collier out of the game, the rest of her teammates came through, and they were all aggressive.
You have two very talented rookies. The number 2 in the draft, Diamond Miller, who, when you get to see her in person, like, she offers this uniqueness of, being tall for a guard, and, being able to do pretty much everything. And making it really like hard for the defense to figure out how to stop her. And obviously Aaliyah Boston has been the most dominant rookie so far in the season. She's been voted in as a starter for the All-Star game. But right now, there's still a long way, obviously, for Diamond Miller to catch up. But I feel like she's catching up a little bit in the Rookie of the Year race with Aaliyah Boston. Now, obviously, a short sample of games where she has had that level. But the difference with Aaliyah Boston, who doesn't always get the ball on the inside for the Indiana Fever, it seems that the Lynx gave the freedom for Diamond Miller to just play a game, and it was very telling in that game that she was with Kayla McBride, the leader of that team, and the Liberty couldn't really figure her out.
Yeah, even when they tried to tighten up their defense, one of them was left open at some point, and it just you had a lot of miscues with the defense and switching, and I think a few times through the game, someone's leaving their assignment but not communicating to the other to switch, and so it left people open, and then they're scoring threes, they're getting those buckets, and you're not going to win a game when you have these breakdowns in defense and you have so much miscommunication. And, for the Liberty, again, you could chalk it up to a back-to-back. I know Stewie always says no excuses. This is what it is. We just got to play hard. And they did try to come back. They only lost by 5. But for this, this was a game that I really wanted them to win. But it was just too much for them, I think.
Yeah, and what was also very interesting was the fact that the Liberty kind of struggled with the centers or power forwards of the Lynx that were cutting quite a lot. There was a lot of movement from the Lynx in terms of their offense, which made it really challenging for the defense. We know that the Liberty are still a new team, and so they're still learning how to communicate transition defense or rotations on defense, and I felt like the Lynx kind of pinpoint that and made it hard for them. Uhas, the former player of UConn, who was drafted quite high in the draft, kind of sort of forgotten about in this last draft, but she's showing that she deserves to be out there, and she provides a lot of good things for the Minnesota Lynx, and I thought she did a tremendous job as well, getting rebounds, moving around, but yeah, overall I know that Sabrina at some point made a little push for the Liberty, scoring quite a lot of threes. I remember one of the Liberty fans sitting just behind us when I think Sabrina had that amazing free, and I think brought it to like a 3-point game, and we got so excited we stood up, everybody stood up, and the fans sitting behind us said, like, I think that's the first time I see you excited today, because I think we had kind of lost hope in that game.
Yeah, in that game, you just saw it, and you just thought, yeah, it's not going to be our night. And so we were sitting there watching the game, and, you're just kind of seeing the flow of things, and it just looked like Minnesota had control, and you're just like, we're just gonna have to sit here and watch this game unfold. But then, yeah, when Sabrina, she really tried to make, and she had a great game points wise. You know, she had the stats, but unfortunately, the rest of her teammates were not as helpful. But yeah, I think she cut it. They cut it to a 3-point lead at one point,
and to a 1-point lead when Breanna Stewart had some free throws. They cut it to a 1 point, but then afterwards, they
had another defensive miscue, which left.
Well, I know I think Kellen McBride at some point had a corner free, and then at some point, like Betnijah was trying to bring the team back, but I think she had like 1 or 2 turnovers that pretty much settled the score, and after that it was too late. So, and I think what I remember from the game that was pretty significant of how the night was going to turn was that half court 3-point shot by Tiffany Mitchell, where it's like when something happened like this just before halftime, you're like, this is not going to be good. And in the end, it wasn't. We lost by 5, I think, 88 to 83. And we would have hoped to, have a clean sheet, or, with, the win on Sunday against Indiana, win on Tuesday against Seattle, win on Thursday against Atlanta, but unfortunately we couldn't finish the job on Friday against Minnesota. So now it's back to the other side, the West Coast, as the New York Liberty are going on a little California trip for a couple of days.
They're gonna show a little California love. Yeah.
So yesterday, they play on Sunday for the very first time this season against the Los Angeles Sparks, with 2 games in LA this past Sunday, and then tomorrow today if you listen to the podcast, but basically Tuesday, they're facing the Sparks again. And so I was kind of intrigued by this matchup because they have stars like Nneka Ogwumike and Jordan Canada, who's, the rising star this season for the Sparks. And at the same time, the Sparks are one of the teams that have had probably the most injuries this season. So it's been a really challenging season for them. But when the talent is actually there and they put all the pieces together and they start getting used to playing together, that could be a very interesting team. So I was very curious as to how the Liberty were going to play against them. And considering that they had so many games prior in New York, and then, the following day had to travel to LA and then play the following day, I didn't know what to expect, but the Liberty, started taking care of business pretty early on in this game. Someone that I was happy to see being the highlight of this first half was Marian Johannes.
Oh yeah, she could not miss a 3.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal, because I think, when you saw her the last game, she's contributed, but I think even in the last game she looked tired. It seems like she had more.
Yeah, because she was we didn't mention that Courtney Vandersloot had not played a game on Friday against the Minnesota Lynx. Sandy Brandello wanted to rest her, and so Marian had the opportunity on Friday to be a starter, and I think we were kind of expecting more, but she was a little bit disappointing. I mean, especially defensively, I felt like she was not at the level that we're accustomed to from her, because she made a lot of improvements defensively, but yeah, it was a little bit disappointing. So now she was back on the second unit, but back to standards that we're more accustomed to from Marian.
Yeah, definitely. I think she just came out and she knew, she had to be aggressive. I think, just probably having a day off, even though they were traveling, helped than having like any sort of back-to-back per se. And so I think that helped her to just get in this game right away and get shots off, and to just take that initiative, because I think she's a great passer. A lot of times, she's always playing for her teammates, which is great, but then sometimes you want to see her take the shots. You want to see her be aggressive, and She got open, and every time she got the ball in her hand, if she could shoot it, she was going to shoot it, and she could not miss, in the first half. And so that was great to see. Yeah, I too, going back on what you were saying about the Sparks, I was also interested in this matchup because I wasn't sure how this was going to go for them. I was really wanting them to have all the wins at home. And then when they were away, I was like, they're going to play LA twice. And so I was like, hopefully they can get one win. And I wasn't sure where it was going to come from. But they definitely came out in this game just aggressive, ready to go. And probably from the last game, you could tell that even from the game with Minnesota, they were really trying to come back in the fourth quarter, but Minnesota just had too much for them. And I think they really wanted to make a statement in this game and not start a road trip off with a loss.
Yeah.
So, it was great to see them come out so strong. And especially the Sparks only scored 2 points for
for a very long time.
For a very long time in the first quarter.
I think it was 21-2.
Yeah.
And then Kurt Miller, the coach of the Sparks, took a timeout. And then they made I wouldn't say a comeback, but they were definitely much better in the game after that. But yeah, it was 21-2. I was like, whew, national TV, that's not a good look for them. But yeah, unfortunately, we sound like a broken record, but unfortunately with the Liberty, we cannot have just yet a 40-minute performance. Now, the Liberty were great on defense. Very little room for the Sparks to play the game. A lot of forced shots. The Liberty were able to play fast when they needed to, rely on their strength. They had Sabrina with a couple of threes. We mentioned Marine, Stewie being Stewie, JJ continuing, to be a dominant force on the inside. So everything was pretty much great. And, there was not much to say. Even in the third quarter, it was pretty much the same as the first half. And then in the fourth quarter, once again, Sandy Brandela was asked at the end of the game. She was even asked, they're doing this new thing with ESPN now where they put earplugs to coaches and ask them questions during the game. I'm really not sure about this system, actually.
Yeah, it's weird.
Because it's like, how do you ask a coach to focus on the game and at the same time answering questions?
It was wild to me.
But, I think she was asked about, do you have, a solution for, those little comebacks that you guys have been through? And she's like, yeah, if you have the key, if you have the answer, let me know because, I don't know what to do about those comebacks. And she definitely also mentioned that after the game where she was really annoyed by, once again, the turnovers.
I think, for the Liberty, again, turnovers and transition defense is really going to be a problem for them going forward if they don't nip this in the bud. Because the turnovers especially, transition defense, I think sometimes, they have lapses. There's no question that they do have lapses when it comes to transition defense. But their turnovers, I don't know a game yet. I mean, maybe early on this season, we have to look back. But I swear, every game lately, they have at least minimum a dozen turnovers or more.
Yeah.
And so, and teams are capitalizing on that. Even for LA Sparks, even though they may have lost this game, they still, 17 turnovers, they still got 16 points off of that.
Yeah.
And so, for them, and then the Sparks only had 8 turnovers.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would love to see the Liberty get single-digit turnovers, but they seem to just have these double digits all the time. And it just seems like a lot of stuff is unforced.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, they play fast when they don't need to. They run the clock, but then kind of forget playing and, having some ball movement, taking quick shots when they don't need to, not fighting for rebounds. And then, like you said, transition defense is non-existent. I cannot recall the number of times where De'Arca Amby just went in there, just running towards the Liberty's basket and just waiting for one of the guards to just pass the ball unattacked, even though you had 1 or 2 Liberty players somewhere in the paint that could have like challenged her, but like just literally forgot her, and she just like, okay, thank you.
And she was the player of the game for the
Yeah,
Sparks.
she was definitely the player.
She had the most points.
I think, you know, like, I know, like, ESPN, they like storytellings, and they're always going to share those stories. But it is amazing, though. I mean, they were sharing during the game that she gave birth in March. She wasn't necessarily expected early on in the training camp at the Sparks, but she was there from, I think, the first day, and just work away towards, you know, being in shape. And, you know, like right now the way she plays is pretty similar to the level she had with the Las Vegas Aces. And obviously I know she was asked earlier in the season about, you know, all the sacrifices and the efforts she had to make to be at that level so quickly, but she just said, I'm a professional, this is my job, you know. So you know, I know for, you know, especially for me as a man, that, you know, it's kind of sort of hard to you know, register or realize that, but, you know, it is amazing though, like, you know, coming back so quickly, you know, at that level after giving birth. For me, it's no short of extraordinary, but for women, it's just, you know, just a regular thing, you know.
You gotta give women respect.
You gotta give them respect, you know.
But still, you know, it's amazing to see her just come back. You know, I have mixed feelings about it, though. To be honest, I do.
We still don't know I still feel we don't fully know the full story with what happened in Vegas. I guess maybe we will. People can argue that now they've been sanctioned, let's move on and stuff. But I don't know.
But I do wonder if that pushed her this time around to come back so quickly, because I do feel like women, it is a miracle and a magnificent thing to give birth, and your body needs time to heal and recover, and unfortunately in this country we just don't get that time. That really, a couple of months, that is not enough. And you know, be that as it may, you know, it's phenomenal, just, you know, the power and strength of Hamby to come back so soon from maternity leave and get back in shape. And you could see her on the court just doing so well. But, you know, it does make me question sometimes what happened in Vegas. Does that play a part of her just coming back and wanting to, and obviously the love of the game, I know that, but, you know, for women in sports, you know, you see, and it's not just in basketball, but you see some of the U.S. women's soccer players who were pregnant, and they're out there running the field 6 months, you know.
Crystal Dunn.
Yeah, you know, and sometimes I wonder, like, man, does that sit in the back of their mind that they could like lose their spot, or you know, and that's hard, because it's just like you don't want to see that in women's sports at all. But I just wonder sometimes if that definitely sits in the back of their mind, so they work hard to come back out, and they'll take a short time off, come back, get their body ready, and back at it. But it just seems like it's a lot. But kudos to her in this game, though, that she did so well, and she was really aggressive with the Liberty. Yes, the Liberty, you know, pretty much, I feel like, had control of this game for the most part, except, again, the turnovers and transition defense was shaky. But I think because they built such a lead, you know, again, for them, they were able to withstand the punches by the Sparks.
Yeah, but it was close though.
Yeah.
I think we had the biggest lead was, I think, 27 points, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And you know, talking about Ambi, she brought the game to a 7-point deficit when she had a 3-point play, attacking the basket, got the N1. And all of a sudden it was a 7-point game, and then you hear I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say the Crypto.com arena. I'm still gonna call it the Staples Center, but the crowd was much louder.
It's Crypto.com.
Alright, Staples Center. But the crowd got loud, and I was like, I still felt like, you know, there's not enough time for them, but you never know. Like the Liberty, when they stop playing, they really stop playing. And so unfortunately Brandella had to bring back Sabrina Ionescu and Breanna Stewart to make sure we settled the score, and we did. Sabrina had a big free, and Stewie also had a 3-point play. I think she had like a little floater that got and one, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, they helped kind of maintain that lead. But we ended up winning the game just 87-79. I guess we'll just take the win, even though the score should have been much bigger than it was. But I guess it's gonna make it for an interesting game on Tuesday. I know Kurt Miller, when he was interviewed prior to the fourth quarter, he was like, you know what, let me try something new for this quarter. We're just getting our pieces together and just see moving forward how we're going to play. So I just want to try new things. That was before they made the comeback. So I'm going to be curious to see what he has in store for the Tuesday game, because obviously playing so close Sunday and Tuesday, it almost feels like a playoff series. And playoff series teams make adjustments, so I definitely expect a different game on Tuesday. And then afterwards, Friday this week, it will be a revenge against the Minnesota Lynx. We're gonna play in Minnesota this time around, but we'll definitely the Liberty have a better performance, I hope, on Friday than they did this past Friday. Nafisa Collier will still be injured, so now you know what to expect. You know that even though their superstar is not there, it's not going to be an easy game. And in a way, maybe it kind of makes me feel better. The Minnesota Lynx took care of business 2 days later against Connecticut this past weekend. So in a way, people that were laughing at the Liberty, the Lynx showed that, they took care of business against its number 2 and number 3 in the league without the superstar. So definitely a team to not take for granted on Friday. And then Sunday, oh boy, we're all waiting for this game. Part 2 of what's going to be a month of love matchup against the Las Vegas Aces. The second game of the series. We're all waiting for that game. Obviously, we hope that the Liberty will do much better than the first game in Vegas. Even though the Las Vegas Aces don't have Candace Parker, they're still a very strong team. They're pretty much the dominating team of the league. The starting lineup right now was the starting lineup last year in the playoff and the championship run. So we know it's going to be a tough game. We know that the Las Vegas Aces is the team that can actually do a 40-minute performance all throughout the game, something that the Liberty have not been able to do as often as the Aces. So tough matchup, but exciting at the same time.
I'll say this. If the Liberty can really tighten up those turnovers, they can stay in this game.
Yeah.
I want them to win. It's going to be hard. There's no question. This is a tough matchup for them. If they can even tighten up the turnovers and just be as aggressive, play with that chip on their shoulder like they played with Atlanta, be dominant like they were yesterday against LA, if they can just somehow put all that together, they can definitely, be a threat to the Aces. The Aces, again, they're a well-oiled machine. They won the championship last year. They've been playing together for a long time. They just know how to play together. You got the point guard over there. Yeah. So you can't, it's a tough matchup, and they got to play their game, but they got to take it to the Aces. They can't have, like the last game, have leads blow up into a balloon into like 20 plus point leads and things like that. So hopefully, and also though with JJ doing as well as she's been doing lately, this might be that emergence to see JJ really come through in this game.
Yeah, like Sabrina said, she might be, the missing piece of that puzzle. And so we do hope that they have a great performance and at least go toe-to-toe with what has been a dominating year for the Las Vegas Aces. So really looking forward to that matchup, and we'll tell you all about it in the next episode. As we always say, Fee,
let's go Liberty!